Hi, team. I'm Fitz Koehler, your fitness expert from fitzness.com and your very noisy race announcer / grand poobah from the Buffalo Marathon. And today, we are here at the Buffalo Marathon Roundtable where we're bringing you a variety of experts to help you train properly during your last month before the Buffalo Marathon takes place, avoid injuries, and perform smarter, we're going to say. So before we get into that, I am going to bring in one of my favorite race directors in the world, one of the two big bulls at the Buffalo Marathon. This is race director Greg Weber. Hi, Greg.
Hey, hi, Fitz. How you doing? It's been so long stuck down there in Florida.
I know. Freedom, sunshine, we've got it all. So Greg, I want to tell you that you started off our conversation great because this morning you texted me, I just swam 2,500 meters, and that's lesson one for our runners, that cross-training is not only a good thing, it's a great thing. It's a way to prevent overuse injuries and enhance your training. So we encourage all runners to get in the pool. Right, Greg?
I would definitely encourage it. Running does wonders for me. It helps keep me limber. I mean, the pool is the best exercise, especially as you get older, and Lord knows I'm old. So
yeah. So you would like to welcome our guests?
I definitely want to welcome everybody who's here. This is our first roundtable. Fitz and I have been talking. We hope to do more in the future. We think the forum is great, different guests, and we're really looking forward to it. We've had a bunch of people asking about training questions, and I know there was one question up that I'll just jump in, Fitz. People are asking when they're going to get their bibs, when this is happening.
Okay.
So I know I'm taking over, right?
Oh, no. I thought you were going to say they were going to ask when they can get their hug from their race announcer, but go on with the bibs.
Well, that will be in 37 days. I mean, it's hard.
That's right.
Normally, we would be talking about picking you up at the airport on Wednesday this week.
That's right.
It's going to be sad. This is going to be the first Memorial Day you're not here in 5 or 6 years.
That's okay. We have something to look forward to. June 26th and 27th. We still have bibs available for the half and the full and the 5K. So
yep, registration closes on the 31st. But the important thing, and real quick, is bibs will be mailed in the first week of June. So everybody will get their bib that's registered the first second week of June or so. And then as far as their jackets and stuff, they will all be handed out at the finish line because we don't have an expo this year.
And the jackets are nice, always.
I could pull one out, that.
You should pull one out. People like to see the swag.
Well, when you're talking to somebody else, I'll pull one out.
Okay, no paper shredding, no. Okay, so Greg, anything else before I invite our esteemed guests onto the show?
No, I don't really want to hog this. This is all about the experts. They've given us their time this morning. I mean, it's wonderful that they're all here and they're excited about being here. So have at it, Fitz. It's all your show.
Thanks, Greg. All right, next guy up, we're going to bring in from Excelsior Orthopedics, athletic trainer Jim Starkey. Jim is a member of the Strides team, athletic trainer for 14 years, served as the team head athletic trainer for Team USA indoor lacrosse, super cool, and he's an avid runner who's run the Chicago Marathon in 21. Welcome, Jim.
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Happy to be on this panel and looking forward to answering some questions and flexing my expertise a little bit in the subject. So thanks again for having me.
Of course, flex that expertise. I love it. Next up, we've got Miss Jenna Duran, or Darren. Do we say Darren?
Darren. Yep.
Sorry, I butchered it so fast, but she's okay. A University of Buffalo graduate, 8 years outpatient orthopedics experience. She's a member of the Strides team. She's a state qualifier in the 400 meters for track and field in high school. She's a sprinter at heart. First road race was in 2015, and she competed the Chicago Marathon in 2019. So welcome, Jenna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome to everyone else who joined us this morning. I'm super excited to, as Jim said, flex my expertise. I got into physical therapy because I hurt myself running. So I have some experience treating athletes, being an athlete, and being an injured athlete. So I look forward to helping everybody complete their 2021 Buffalo Marathon with ease.
Well, I'm so glad you're here, and I think everybody needs a physical therapist. I see mine every week, period, end of story, and I love it. Okay, the next guest on our panel is very fun, but let's put horns up for Coach Vicki Mitchell from the University of Buffalo. Go Bulls. She's the director and head coach of the men's and women's cross country track and field team. She's personally a 7-time NCAA national champion in cross country and track and field. She took the easy races, no doubt. She has a master's in exercise physiology. She's a 2-time Olympic trials qualifier, coach of Checkers Running Club, and she runs the training programs for the Buffalo Marathon. So welcome, Vicki.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here this morning with the rest of our panelists, and I'm looking forward to having some fun and hopefully giving some information to our folks tuning in.
Yeah, you know what I love about this panel is we have a group that has all the science background, all the knowledge about how the body works and how to help it perform better and recover from injury. But then we have a lot of actual experience here. And one of the things I find most valuable from my role as a race announcer, on occasion, there's a guy on a microphone who works on television or whatever, but he's never run a race. And I think that's a huge, that's build that wall between you and the athletes. If you just don't understand who they are and what they're going through, hard to identify, hard to communicate, hard to empathize and get them better. And the fact that I've hit the wall at mile 10 and suffered all sorts of crazy things allows me to, pour that genuine love and appreciation and support where they need it. And I know you guys are capable of doing that too. So we actually have a sports medicine doctor that's supposed to join us. I imagine he's, elbows deep into someone's knee, hip, or shoulder right now, which is why he isn't. But if he joins in, I'm going to bring him on. We'll introduce him at that point. If not, we're gonna go from here. So I'm going to start with Jason. With the first question is, what are some common causes of running injuries?
Is this question directed for me?
Jim,
I assume?
sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
I said Jason. Jim, do you have what are the most common causes of runner injuries?
So many times, a lot of what we see is a result of overuse. And, a lot of people like to run to get in shape, but it should be a paradigm shift. It should be the other way around. It should be, getting in shape to run and making sure that our athletes are moving well, meaning they have good mobility through their joints. They're moving well in terms of flexibility, so they're not having any flexibility limitations in hamstrings, ankles, hips, et cetera, and basically having a baseline of strength that allows them to endure the multiple miles that go into marathon training. As many of you participants probably know from looking at Coach Mitchell's training programs, you start lower on in mileage, meaning you're not just going out and running 40 miles right off the bat. You're gradually building up your body's tolerance to those types of challenges. So I'd say one of the biggest things we see through the Strides Committee is overuse. People that want to dive right in and maybe dive right in a little bit too quick without checking some of the necessary boxes to do so safely or do so, in the best interest of their body. So in my opinion, in what we've seen anecdotally, most of it is overuse and just diving in when maybe your body's not totally prepared for that. And Jenna, I know you, again, being on the committee with me, see a lot of this. So I'd say, what are your thoughts on this as well?
So of course, I'm going to naturally agree with my colleague Jim here. It is overuse. I tend to find that runners just want to run. Like that's what we like to do. And we feel like if maybe we didn't run, then we didn't get a good workout in. But I think when I look at people's training plans, what I tend to find is they only write down their miles or like their run plans, and they don't have a plan for when their strength training is going to go in there, when their flexibility or their mobility work is going to be added in. And then one of the biggest things that I see is just a lack of recovery. So not just rest days, but recovery includes like your nutrition, your water intake, your sleep, and then adding in either cross training or mobility work. So I think having a plan not only for your running, but having a plan for your rest, recovery, strength training, and all that, and have it written down is going to be really helpful.
Yeah, good insight, guys. And because I host all these races and I deal with the mass audiences, sometimes I ask the question. I'll be teaching a clinic, usually strength training for runners, and I'll say, how many of the runners in here just run? And it's shocking, 75, 80% of the hands go up. And I think, oh, yay for the 20%. You guys are genius. But so many runners feel like, well, I'm on limited time. I don't have time for strength training. And really the equation is quite opposite. If you're on limited time, you force in the strength training. So I'm going to pause to introduce our Dr. of Sports Medicine, Dr. Jason Matuzak. Jason, I don't know if you were hiding there underneath the fold or if you were actually elbows deep in a patient, but thank you for joining us. And Dr. Matuzak is a driving force behind Excelsior's endurance athletes training program Strides, which works with injured athletes to speed recovery and mitigate the risk of re-injury. So, Dr. Matuzak, you only see injured folks. So, where can our runners do better? What do you see as the greatest cause for injury?
Well, the panel has already talked about a lot of really good things, but I think that the one that we really see that contributes the most to injuries is the failure to listen to your body. I think that it's very, very rare that I see somebody who gets an injury from running where there haven't been warning signs flashing for days or weeks beforehand. And if we catch the warning signs early enough, I think the thing that my runners hate hearing the most is that they have to be pulled out of running entirely. And that's one thing that we really strive to not do. We try to keep them being active, doing the sport that they love doing, because we know how important it is for them to be able to hit their goals. And if they listen early on to those warning signs and they get in sooner so we can address the problems through just some simple modifications, sometimes we can keep them going better. So, that's the thing that I would say is to listen to your body, pay attention to warning signs, get in as soon as you see that there might be a problem.
Thank you. And Coach Vicki, I was like, should I call her Coach Mitchell or Vicki? We decided on
I respond to anything, but it's all good. It's all good.
So Vicki, you're there with hands-on elite athletes who want to perform their best. And maybe some of our audience are elite athletes and maybe some are, average runners like myself. But how do you juggle people's desperation to progress and pain?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the things that most runners are very good at is going out and running and training, but there's a lack of recovery and a lack of focus on how to recover. And, you mentioned if you look at someone's training log, all you see is the miles recorded. One of the things that I have on the training plans for my athletes at the University at Buffalo is we have pre-run warm-up exercises, right? Then we have our actual run workout. Then we have post-run exercises. We have days that we have strength training. We have days that are designated as recovery days, cross-training days. So all of those things put together are really important, not just running. And, as a runner, we want to run 100%. However, if we want to be able to continue to run, incorporating the other elements of, recovery, strength, prehab work, and making sure that you're taking some cross-training days is critical for long-term success.
I love it. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, running is a very, very kind of narrow range, small range activity. It's not outlandish like karate or kickboxing where you were thinking, oh, that person's going to get injured doing this thing they were born to do, I believe, which is running. But it is really traumatic on your body and the impact on your joints as you crash into the floor with every step, and the opportunity to hit a bump in the road, have your foot roll off the sidewalk is, aplenty. So all of these other areas of fitness and including the warm-up are really important. So what are your favorite warm-up activities for running? Because so many people just show up cold to the start line and I yell go and they give it a shot. So what do we all recommend? Let's start with you, Jim.
Sure. So a lot of what I like to do, we call it a functional warm-up, what we do in our clinic. And it's working the body in 3 dimensions. So as a runner, we work in what's called the sagittal plane. And you can think of that as literally going forward and backward. But that's not just the only way the body moves. So in our clinic, like I mentioned, we do a 3-dimensional approach. So we do the forward and backward warm-up, as that's obviously most sport specific. But we also have athletes going sideways, doing side shuffles, doing what we call cariokas. So we're rotating the hips. And we'll also incorporate a little bit of band work and warming up the hip muscles and warming up all the stabilizers that go a long way in keeping the body rigid and keeping everything lined up as we're, doing thousands and thousands of steps per session. So, with that being said, just to give you a quick analogy here, You can compare the body to something like a race car. You can have the best engine in the whole field, but if you don't have a great chassis, you don't have good suspension, you don't have good tires, you don't have good overall makeup, something's going to break down eventually. So in getting warmed up, just working in the three-dimensional plane, just to keep it quite simple, is a good way for us to start, and not to get too deep in the weeds on all the details of the warm-up. Like I said, working in 3 dimensions is a good place to start, a good solid foundation to get those muscles warmed up and prepped to hit the starting line.
Absolutely. Coach Vicki, do you have any specific moves people can do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually follow exactly what Jim just outlined. We'll do dynamic warm-ups, whether it is college student athletes, adult, recreational runners, but it will consist of things such as skipping, arm circles, a lunge matrix, lateral movement, opening up the shoulders, and that be incorporated with the arm circles. We want to, usually when I have people coming to our club practice, they're coming from sitting in an office all day. So warm up needs to be dynamic and not confused with, let me sit and stretch statically. You don't want to do that before you exercise. You want to prepare your body for the movement that's coming. So I'm in full agreement with exactly what was described by Jim.
And then I'm going to stick with you, Vicki. How important is a runner's upper body strength and flexibility to their performance in a race?
Sure. It's very important. Do you need to be a bodybuilder? Definitely not. But do you need to have a functional level of strength so that you're maintaining proper form? As you fatigue in a race, you're going to start to incorporate more and more muscles that you generally don't use. Your form's going to deteriorate. So whether it's your shoulders slouching, getting what I call a duck butt, where your butt is sticking back, you're arching your back, now you're preventing your knees from lifting. You want to make sure you have a solid carriage through your shoulder, that your arms are swinging back and forth in a smooth manner, and that you're not breaking down because you're fatigued. So it's important. Again, you don't need to spend hours in a gym lifting, but do you need to incorporate some strength exercises? Absolutely.
I love that. Great answers from all of you on every question. So a show of hands, who thinks that resistance bands are some of the God's gift to athletic training? No? Okay. Yeah. I couldn't believe more in them, and I use them when I'm in the greatest shape, and then when I'm in the worst shape, when I'm in therapy. Bands to the rescue. So if you're out there and you don't own a set, we've got resistance bands with handles, work almost every part of your body, and then resistance loops. They're maybe a $10 investment overall, and they will definitely up the ante for your training. I'm sure Excelsior has some free resources for you to check out. Fitzness.com has tons of free resources with bands, but they really are a solution. If you can't afford a gym membership or you don't have a big setup, get some bands. They're the answer. So I'm going back to you, Jenna, as we talk about runner injury. So I try to convince people that if they do the typical exercises a physical therapist would prescribe during rehab, then they can avoid the pain, suffering, injury, rehab to begin with. So things like lateral gait and lunges and so forth. What specific exercises do you put your patients through that you think all runners should embrace before injury?
Well, there's so many I could pick.
Right.
So
Give me top 5.
All right. I guess I'll go with more of like the core themes that I'm looking for. So I know everyone's really sick of hearing like, you need to do core strength, and you hear it all the time, but you hear it all the time because it's super important. So definitely incorporating core strengthening exercises, because that's where all of our power sits. You're not like, think of that as like your foundation of your house. If your foundation's not good, the rest of it is like gonna kind of fall apart too. So if you can have a really strong core foundation, that's gonna help. So everyone knows about like planks and side planks, and we like to do a little bit more like upright exercises too. So don't think of core as just sit-ups and planks. Like lunges are part of core strengthening. Doing things like deadlifts and squats. You can be doing squats with like reaching overhead and kind of incorporating whole body. Those are some of my go-tos. And then also it's super important when we're running, we're always only ever on one foot. So that's by definition, like the term of running, you only have one foot ever hitting the ground at a time. I tend to find all of my runners come in. I'm like, hey, can you stand on one foot? They're like going all over the place, and they make some excuse about how the carpet's squishy or my balance has never been that good. So that's one thing that I really feel like runners should work on specifically, doing exercises where you're balancing either on one leg or are unilateral. So single leg squats, star reaches, single leg deadlifts, lunges are also like more unilateral than bilateral. So kind of focusing and having a few of those added into your routine is important.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And a simple balance training exercise for anyone out there is stand up on one foot. If you feel stable, you can let go of the countertop, but get on that one foot where you feel good and then close your eyes.
Yep.
Balance training can be just that simple, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not so complicated. Again, doesn't require any equipment. And for those of you who think I can't do all this stuff, I don't have any equipment, you have the floor. The floor is your equipment. So, Dr. Matuzak, I got to tell you, I love your hair. I love a bald man, very slick, very smart. So, when do people come to you? Like, how does a runner know the difference? Because most runners are in some level of pain on most days a week.
Yeah. So the warning signs that we would say is when the pain is increasing day after day. Oh wait, actually, but I'm going to go back to that last the question about the strength, the exercises.
Okay.
I just want to add one more on top of that, and that's foot strengthening exercises. I mean, like we talk a lot about like supports and things like that, but our feet have an incredible ability to have intrinsic strength, and to have that support come from inside the foot itself. And I think that is often overlooked. And I think that doing a lot of the exercises Jenna talked about, barefoot or in socks, preferably barefoot, engages those intrinsic foot muscles a lot. But actually just exercising the feet too, and working on strength training for the feet can help to correct a lot of the issues that we see in our runners too. So now I'm going to switch back to the other question. Sorry. I just wanted
That's great. No, that was great input.
So the pain where we're looking for is if it's increasing day after day, if generally if it's okay to be sore, it's okay to have some pain that when you go out and if it's gone by the time you go back out there to run again, and then that's generally considered to be an acceptable type of pain. So if it's increasing day after day, if the pain actually causes you to stop a run in the middle because it's gotten so severe, if the pain is present while you're sleeping and prevents you from being able to get to sleep, those are times where you absolutely should be in, because at those points in times you've reached a point where we kind of grade our overuse injuries on a scale of 1 through 4. Typically speaking, a grade 1 is the fastest that's going to get better, and a grade 1 is present. Let me think about this. So a grade 1 is present when you're after you run, but not present during your run. And a grade 2 is present during your run, but doesn't affect your performance. And a grade 3 is present during your run, but actually forces you to stop your run. And a grade 4 is present all the time, even when you're sleeping, for instance, for being able to sleeping. Grade 1 is typically, 2 to 3 weeks type of healing, if you were to just kind of put general numbers on it. But by the time you get to a grade 4 that's present and affecting your sleep, you could be talking about 6 to 12 weeks or longer for recovery for a lot of those injuries. So, what we're really kind of talking about is trying to intervene at that earlier stage, when the pain is getting worse, but where we can intervene before you really have to miss substantial time.
So excellent response. And just a note to all of our audience members, feel free to use the comment section wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. You can comment and we will see those comments and I will try to weave them into this conversation. So Dr. Matuzak, what percentage of your running patients show up and actually need surgery?
Fortunately, extremely rarely do they actually need any type of surgery, which is good. I actually don't do surgery myself. So, when patients come to see me, the expectation is that we're going to be able to try and get them better without requiring any type of surgery, be able to get them better, doing a lot of the things that Jim and Jenna are doing. We're going to be looking at some of the things from musculoskeletal standpoint that might have contributed to their problem we also look at it from a medical standpoint too. We've talked about specifically about overuse, and I know that Vicki, Coach Mitchell, probably has a number of female athletes. We haven't talked about female athlete triad and bone mineral density issues and some of those medical types of problems that contribute to even some of our men athletes with REMS, relative energy deficiency, or RED syndrome, where we're dealing with relative energy deficiency syndrome. And those types of situations are the medical aspects that contribute to the injury pattern. And I think that that's important to keep in mind too.
Yeah, and of note, because so many athletes think, I'm going to self-diagnose, I'm going to ask Mr. Google, which is usually a bad idea. It's also a bad idea to ask your friend who's a school teacher or a carpenter because they don't have the medical savvy. It's also a bad idea to ask someone like me. I'm a fitness expert. I don't deal with injured people. And so, professionals should stay in their lane, but you should know the difference. If you are experiencing pain and possible injury, you don't ask a pal or your spouse, you go to a medical professional. And, I rely on my PT for almost everything in the world. And on occasion, I have to switch courses and see the physician or a specialist, but you should rely on these medical practitioners. And, perhaps you spend 20, 50, $100 on a copay to get started, but that may save you from spending, forget the months in pain and agony and misery, but it may save you thousands in the long run because you can prevent major injuries by nipping them in the bud now by using these resources right here. These people and their colleagues know what they're doing. And I think every serious runner should have one of each on their list: a coach, an athletic trainer, a PT, a sports medicine doctor at their beck and call if need be. All right, moving on. That's my opinion. I mean, is that a good opinion? And Mr. Google's probably not answering your questions. I didn't ask Google about, I did breast cancer a couple years ago. I was like, I'm just going to look this up, fix it myself. That would have been a super bad idea. All right. So we've been talking a lot about injuries, but there's a lot of real healthy people out there watching this, super excited about their races on the 26th and 27th. We've got 5K athletes, half marathoners, Vicki, what should they be doing right now? What should their training schedule look like 1 month out before the race?
Yeah, so hopefully they've been training some, because if they just woke up this morning and said, I think I want to run a marathon in 5 weeks, and they've never run before, I'm going to recommend they hold off on this one. Right. But really, at this point, you've already had several long runs under your belt. And you're probably leading up to maybe 1 or 2 more long runs. And then you start to back down the distance of those long runs, a couple of weeks out. But main base is going to be really strong aerobic training, getting in those staple long runs, and then varying goals for different people running. Some are I want to get to the finish line. Other people are going to be shooting for a specific time, and some are going to be shooting for perhaps a sub-elite or even an elite type of time. So the types of training that would go into the preparation for those different categories, it's pretty different. A novice runner or one that is hoping to just get to the finish line healthy, we're going to gradually build up the running volume so that they can accomplish the distance. Whereas my person that's aiming for, let's say they want to run sub 3 hours, now we have to start looking at some lactate threshold training, or otherwise known as tempo runs, incorporating marathon training, marathon race pace into long runs. So pace becomes significantly more important the faster that you want to run.
And then what about, let's start with our 5K folks. Give them some, because people can decide today from stationary, I want to do the 5K, and they could totally be prepared within a month.
Yeah. So if someone decides I want to pick up and just be able to accomplish the 5K in 5 weeks from now, absolutely. I mean, I guess you could probably go Google, couch potato to 5K type of run. However, using common sense is always the best approach, but doing a gradual buildup. If running is brand new, maybe you're starting with a run-walk combination. Again, as already mentioned by our medical experts, overuse injuries most common for runners, and it is someone that has increased workload without an adaptation period. So if someone is brand new, you really want to consult an expert to say, how should I get there to a healthy manner? And there's many ways to do it, but definitely time and 5 weeks to prepare for a 5K distance.
Absolutely. And I always tell folks if they can roam the mall for an hour, they can do a 5K.
Absolutely.
Greg Weber, I got a question for you. You're going to look me in the eyes and smile this time. Greg.
Oh. I got to unmute myself. Go ahead.
All right. So if someone comes out to our Buffalo Marathon 5K and they decide, I have to walk the whole thing, will there be security out on the course with a horse whip to, take care of people who are walking, who aren't bending their knees and propelling themselves off the ground? Will there be security there to deal with those people not running?
Yes, there will be. I mean, they won't be there all day. I mean,
no, the answer is no.
No, that's not true, because there are people who come out and walk. There are people who want to. This is
where I'm getting at. Nobody will be whipped for not running.
Well, if we're talking, I'm taking the whip away from you. I'm not going to give it to you. So, yeah, we're not gonna whip them. But I like to set an expectation too. I mean, there are people, we may ask you to go to the sidewalk. As the trail vehicle passes you. I mean, we've had some people who are. 5K is a big deal for a lot of people. It's not, right. Even though we say it's 5 weeks, a 5K is a big accomplishment for some people who've never done anything.
It's a huge, but we have plenty of people who do nothing but exclusively walk, and they do a great job, and they finish well.
We're supportive. I mean, our race is, Vicki is actually the lead director of the 5K in support. She'll tell you, we don't give her a whip either. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Anyone out there who's thinking, I can't run, I can't take part, you can come, you can walk, stroll, saunter, strut.
Yeah,
shimmy,
without a doubt. We've branded this 5K as family friendly. This is, moms and dads, kids, walking, no crawling. That's the diaper dash. So,
and drooling.
It's a great time for everybody. So,
yes, it is. All right, we're going to go to Jim. What is your take if you've not started training for the full and are signed up for it? Thank you, Charles, for the great question.
I think this goes back to Coach Mitchell's input on this, that if you haven't started training yet, you might want to defer your entrance to next year. But if you're doing the 5K, especially if you're a walker, I don't see any reason that you couldn't begin training now. And the first thing to do is take the first step, right? We say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And that's the case here as well. Just getting out there and doing it will help you start striving towards that goal. So really the first thing is, as far as a 5K training goes, is just getting out there. And a lot of times we recommend our athletes start with a walk-run progression, meaning they can walk for 4 minutes and run for 1 and do that 5 or 6 times. And that's a good way to start getting the body used to the stress of going for endurance, whether it's 5K, which for those of you out there who aren't up on the metric system is just over 3 miles, to the marathon. So in terms of the 5K, I don't think it's too late to start getting ready for that, especially for our walking group. But in terms of the marathon, I think you're kind of behind the 8 ball, and it might be a better idea to look towards next year to begin your training for that.
Hey, Greg, are people allowed to drop down to the half if they're not prepared for the full?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people drop down from the full to the half right now. We've had people drop into the virtual race too. This year has all been about density control for us. So we are allowing people to defer, up until the final day. And that's going to be a new policy of ours. But we want people to be in the event they feel the most comfortable with. This is a new year for us, obviously, with COVID, a different situation. We're dealing with a lot of stuff. Training is slightly off. The extra 4 weeks, I know some people have said, hey, we're really happy. We have extra 4 weeks of training. Other people are going, my whole plan is blown. So they can move to the events they need to move to that they are comfortable. Our goal is we want everybody at the start line, and we want to see them all at the finish line. Our number one responsibility is safety and a good experience for everybody.
Yeah. So perhaps Chris, or Charles, if you haven't started training for that marathon, I think a half marathon and below, I think they're all very doable distances for someone who's generically fit. Like you can up the ante and get through a half marathon. There may be some mild pain, there might be some suffering, some crankiness, but I think the half marathon is a very doable distance. I think a full marathon is something you have to legit commit to and really build in, chunks of time throughout your day and week, because there's no just squeaking by on a marathon, right?
Well, yeah, and just to interrupt, Fitz, if 5K, you don't feel like 5K is enough and you feel like half or full is too much at this point, we do also still have slots available in the relay. So go find 3 friends and you can each run 6 miles, and don't tell the last person they have to run 7. So, and you'll have a good time, and we'll raise some money to boot.
Yeah, the relay athletes are really fun. I enjoyed their finishes last year. Now, Greg, is it true that after the race this year that you were going to go out and run the half marathon?
Yeah, that's a bad rumor, but it's true. My best friend and race director, Rich, we have the Heart to Heart fundraiser for cardiac care for Gates Vascular, Kaleida, and Buff General. And Rich's mom suffered and passed away of heart disease. And I had the distinct pleasure of being told I have the start of heart disease in January. So Rich said, I think I'm going to run and raise money. And after the race, a la Dave McGilvray, who runs after the race. And I was like, well, great. Now that you're doing it, I have to do it too. So we're both going to run. The jury's out. He's running after the race. I'm up all week. I may run at 2 a.m., but I'll probably run after the race.
You know what, Greg? Why don't you just take off at like 6 hours into the full and you go do your thing, and I'll still be at the finish line and we can have some hoopla for you.
The problem with that is if I take off at 6 hours, you're still at the finish line. And we've already had a discussion on another broadcast where you're going to do it with us.
No, that's not happening. I run around the finish. I'm so active as a race announcer. I don't just move my mouth. I run. And so no, the answer is no. I'm committing 100% of my energy towards our athletes, but we'll see. All right. So we do not have our nutritionist on the show. And I really, again, I believe in staying in the lane as far as, sports goes, but who has some suggestion on managing fuel and hydration while running? Jim, would you like to take that?
Sure. I think I could speak to that. So, that's always a hot topic. And I'm going to just assume, we'll say this is normal race conditions. We're not way high in the temperature. We're not way low in the temperature. So just, an average day, nice weather for this one. One of the important things I think to start with is, now that we have a month prior to the marathon to actually prep for it, one of the things our racers can do is to figure out what we call their sweat rate. And this kind of serves as a tool to help us determine how much they sweat, how much water they may need, and help us dial it in a little bit better per individual. So instead of giving you a generic concept, we can give you a kind of a game plan or a formula to try to figure this out. So what we usually suggest is that a runner goes out for, approximately an hour run, and beforehand weighing themselves on a scale to see what their body weight is. And we suggest that you do that unclothed. That way you get the most accurate version of how much weight you're currently holding. So going out for an hour-long run, and then after you finish, stepping back on a scale and seeing how much weight you've lost. It's kind of a simple way to figure this out. So say, for example, I'm a runner and I go out for a 1 hour run, and I come back and I hop on the scale and I'm a pound lighter. So simply that tells me that I'm 16 ounces down, which would be the equivalent of about a pint of water. Now, I know, as we train, many of our athletes will hydrate during their runs, and you have to take that into consideration as well. So if I go out, let's go back to the formula. So if I go out and I run for my hour and I come back and I've lost 16 ounces, but during my run, I've, let's say I drank approximately 12 ounces. So that puts our number at 28 ounces. And in order for us to figure out our sweat rate, essentially divide that number. So we want to replenish what we've lost during the run, and knowing that I lost a pound of body weight, but I also added 12 ounces of water during that time, it tells us 28 ounces. So for all intents and purposes, as far as hydration goes during a race, that comes to about 7 ounces per every 15 minutes or so, which is about what you can tolerate over the course of an hour. Our stomach can hold 24 to 48 ounces, and we don't want to overdo it so that when our runners are out there running, they have things sloshing around in their belly. Yeah. So like I said, biggest thing to do early on is to figure out how much you're sweating, how much body weight you lose, and that'll kind of determine how much you should be replenishing during your race. And again, as the marathon's set up, we have aid stations everywhere, water stations everywhere. So this gives them ample opportunity to hydrate during the race. But if you can't figure out your sweat rate, a simple rule of thumb, guys, to use here, we usually say 4 to 6 ounces every 15 or 20 minutes would be adequate. And that can be taken in from water or sports drink. I think I have a little bit of a preference towards a sports drink in my experience, just because you're getting the added carbohydrates and some of the electrolytes that you're going to lose through your sweat. And whether you're running, the 5K, the half marathon, or the full marathon, having a little bit of extra energy available is going to help you kind of push through a little bit further and help increase your endurance slightly. Everyone talks about hitting the wall at mile 20, and essentially what that entails is you kind of run out of energy, and you may be switching your energy systems from carbohydrates to fat. And with that being said, that's when you start to feel that, oh, I've hit the wall, I'm kind of smoked here. So again, just to recap, 4 to 6 ounces every 15 or so minutes is probably appropriate for most people, just as a general rule of thumb. But again, you can be as simple as drink when you're thirsty. And there's lots of books out there talking about too much hydration, too little hydration. So the biggest thing I can tell you, folks, practice before you do the race, right? Go out there and do your long run and find a strategy that works best for you. Not everybody's the same. I can tell you anecdotally from my experience, every 15 minutes, I'll do 2 to 3 ounces of a sports drink. Every 45 minutes, I'll do an energy gel. And that seemed to work for me. But again, everybody has a different tolerance to the amount of fluid they can take in and the amount of carbohydrates they can take in as well. So go out and practice it first. The worst thing you can do is get all your mileage figured out, get your training figured out, get your strength training figured out, and then have this one little component that plays such a large role in your performance not dialed in the time you toe the start line. So again, go practice just like you would if you were training for the race.
Well said. Well said. Vicki, would you like to add anything to that?
I would. And I think Jim just totally nailed it by saying you got to practice it. So you need to have a strategy going in that you have rehearsed during your long runs. The other really important thing is for the Buffalo Marathon, or if you're preparing for a different marathon down the road, go to the website and know where the aid stations are, what drinks are being offered, if there's going to be gels on the course, what support is on the course. Because if you're using what they are providing, you need to practice with that to make sure that you can tolerate it. And the individuality is so important. If I drank as much as Jim just described, I would be living in the Porta-John stops, which are also located on the course map, I know, with the Buffalo Marathon. So I know where I would have to get to the next one. But each person has such variance in how much they sweat, and obviously environmental factors, whether it's cold, rainy, windy. People don't account for wind. If it's a cold day and windy, it's going to dehydrate you. If it's hot, we commonly think it's going to dehydrate you, but add on an element of humidity, your sweat response is impaired. So those are all things that need to be navigated around, and as best as possible, practicing at the time of your marathon. So if 7 a.m. start, do your long runs at 7 a.m. So you're used to getting up, fueling beforehand, and you have basically a rehearsal done every time you go for your long run. If you know it's going to be warmer climate, throw on extra clothes. The toughest thing is preparing for a summer marathon when you start your training in March and it's 30 degrees. Throw on extra clothes to simulate a warmer environment, or jump on a treadmill and wear extra, like a hoodie or something. It's really unenjoyable, but it will prepare you for the unenjoyableness of a hot day. So
I love it. All really well thoughtful advice. And I think that extends into other things on race days. We always hope for the best, prepare for the worst, but it's important to not break out a new outfit on race day, which seems like, oh, well, who doesn't want to wear a new outfit? But you may end up chafing in place. There may be seams you didn't think about when you were in the dressing room. And then, of course, all the people who go to an expo and buy brand new shoes and think, I'm going to wear these shoes for my race. They look so great and they feel so good. And the new shoes maybe don't feel so good at mile 10, right?
I think that is so important, because as you mentioned, you go to the race expo, and I know we're not having one this year with the Buffalo Marathon, but so easy to pick up, this new singlet looks great, or these running shorts look great, or shoes, and you want to debut them the next day in your marathon. Worst possible thing, go with what works and don't change anything in that last week of preparation. That's the only thing you can do wrong is changing something dramatically or running too much in that last week.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to do a little quick Q&A for all of you. Give me 1-2-word answers. What is your favorite part about running? You got to keep it short. I'm going to start with you, Greg. So everybody unmute. Greg, you first. What's your favorite part about running?
The solitude and the quiet away from my computer.
Jim?
The feeling after I finish.
Jenna?
Oh, Jim, why'd you go before me? Definitely when I'm, how good I feel when I'm done.
Vicki?
I enjoy the beauty of the movement.
Jason?
No, I hate running. It's torture every step. No, you know what I like is when I'm traveling to other cities for meetings and things like that. I love being able to see a city in ways that I otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know what? I love the fact that it makes me feel like I'm 5. Whenever I start running, the little Fitz comes out. I feel like, yay! It just feels very youthful. All right, back around, Greg.
Fitz, can I add on Jason's comment there for a second? Because one of the things, and he's right about the city, and when we talk about Buffalo and the architecture and the things to see around the city, most of the people who lived here for years don't understand what they're running by. So I'll have to do a plug for my friend Pete. He went out and he created a new interactive map that we have, and we have, with Diane Sardi's help, and we have gone out and we've highlighted some of the key points every mile that people are going to be running by. And we're going to expand on this in the years, but there are some incredible things that they're going to run by. And I would recommend they go out and look at the map and just take a look at what's on the course and what they're running by mile after mile after mile. So
it's a beautiful course, and it's a very charming city. Well done. Well done. All right, Greg, what is your what do you love most about runners? This is the question. What do you love most about runners?
I go back to when I took over 6 years ago. My favorite thing about runners and directing this race, and God loved the elites and the people who finish in 2.5 hours. I love the people who finish in the last 5 hours. To see them accomplish their goal, to see them cry when they finish. Some runners who have been doing this a long time go, it's a half marathon, whatever, it's a 5K. It's such a huge accomplishment for people. And to see somebody take that first step or know they took that first step, and then to see them take the final step across the finish line it's just incredible. I love to see their emotion.
Yeah, it's a very special experience. I'm so glad. That's my home base, the finish line. Jim, what do you love most about runners?
Just the determination and the willingness to go to any length to get the job done. So it's you can see the drive in many of their eyes when they come into the clinic and when you see them on the road. But just the determination, I think it's an unspoken quality that many runners have. That they're just willing to work to get the job done, and spare no expense or overturn no stone to get there. Agree. Jenna?
Yeah, I love working with runners because they really want to work, I love a little bit of the crazy, all runners just have that little bit of crazy in them to want to go out and run. Like I always hear, oh, why do you run? That's like punishment for other sports. But I think if you can get, with the runners, they get themselves into like where you learn to love the herd kind of thing. And that takes a really special breed of human. And I really like working with those people because they're willing to work hard, and you see really good results. And I don't know, it's just nice bunch of people to work with because they just want to work.
Amen. Vicki?
Trying to answer that in 1 or 2 words is virtually impossible, but ditto everything that Jenna just said. I think there's a little bit of distance runners in general, we're a little different, and they're just special people with the passion and determination that they have. Obviously, my career is coaching collegiate student athletes, so I'm with naturally very highly motivated, driven, and moderately talented young men and women, but all the way to the recreational level and students or adults that are 70, 80, 90 years old. Just being with people that enjoy the commonality, and it's the only sport that you can bring elite to first timers together on a starting line and have that experience. And I think that's really special about our sport.
I agreed 100%. Dr. Matuzak?
I love that they get hurt. No, no. Actually, you know, it's funny, right? You know that there are some athletes that that everything has to be exactly perfect for them to be able to go out and perform. If they have the tiniest little twinge somewhere, they can't do it. They can't get past that point. These are not our distance runners. Our distance runners will come in like duct tape together with, you know, pieces of them like falling off, and they'll still be out there trying to push through a race. So, you know, those are the types of things that I like to see.
Yeah, they're pretty incredible. I was raised to associate up, meaning surround yourself with people better than you and you'll always do well. And so even on race day, when someone hands me 25,000 athletes who have come out for their own health, their great causes, their community, I feel like I'm associating up. You know, I really admire and respect the people who show up to our events. So yeah, everything you said times 10. You guys have great feedback. All right. Weirdest place you've ever chafed. I'm starting with you, Dr. Matuzak.
Weirdest place that I've ever chafed?
Yeah, are you a chafer? Where's your weird chafing spot?
My nipples are so sensitive. They do not do well, especially in the cold. Oh man, you get into the shower after. Oh, that's like crying pain.
Do you put the like Band-Aids on your nipples?
I have tried that. Yes, and you know, for some reason it still goes through the Band-Aids. I got to like layer up like multiple layers or something.
Sorry, Vicki.
I've been pretty fortunate that I've had very, very few issues, but you know, occasionally you get the sports bra with weird seams that kind of scoop along here, and you get back from a run and you're just a layer of blood there. So that's really about it. So you throw that sport bra out, go to the next one.
Next one, yeah. Yes. Jenna?
I mean, do I really have to answer?
Yes, you do.
Oh man, okay. I guess I'm the classic underarm chafer, although I have found a cream that works really well, and I have been chafe free for like 2 years. So I'm going to try not to jinx it. Maybe it means I'm not running hard enough.
You can tell us what that cream is if it has a brand. If you recommend it, we'll listen.
I think it's called Buff. B-U-F-F.
All right.
So
keep an eye out for Buff.
Keep a lookout for Buff. Works really well for me.
Jim?
So Dr. Matuzak stole my thunder. I'm kind of the same thing. I have to throw the Band-Aids on, or I'm gonna have a bad shower after I run. But since nipples have already been taken, occasionally this doesn't bother me much when it happens. My toes, they overlap slightly, and so when I run, I get hot spots. Yeah, I get the claws. So I'll take my socks off, and all of a sudden I'll have 10 blisters I didn't actually feel, but now they're there. So you know, I've got 3 kids and I change a lot of diapers, and the butt paste that I've used for them actually tends to help between the toes. So parents out there, you already have the stuff and probably right at your fingertips. Feel free to use it. It does work for running purposes too.
Butt paste in the toes. That might be the most important thing we've learned today. Greg Weber.
Well, I can honestly say I've only actually chafed once. It was in my first marathon at Flying Pig about 14 years ago, and it happened to be a day where it decided to downpour from the start of the race to the end of the race, and I can honestly say my entire body was chafed. And I didn't really realize it until I got in the shower, and it was probably the most painful experience of my life.
Ouch. Whole body chafe. That wins. Yeah, I have a Donjoy knee brace. Y'all might be very familiar. It prevents my knee bowing in, and one of the pads, I don't know where it went, but I ran a half marathon with the hard part of the Velcro rubbing left, right above my knee, and all the people behind me kept saying, excuse me, your leg is bleeding. And I was like, I know. So I had to decide either I was going to take off the brace and deal with the pain of the knee bowing in, or keep on the brace and let my skin pay the price. And I chose the skin, and that wasn't a good time. So done with that. All right, next up, favorite pre-race meal snack. So what do you eat before a big race? I know most of you have run pretty long distance events. So Jenna, let's start with you.
I feel like I'm not the best person to ask. As you said in the intro, I am a sprinter at heart. I have run 2 marathons. I will
Good enough.
Never run one again.
What did you eat before your marathons?
I don't eat enough. So I know fueling is my weak spot in my marathon training. So my go-to is typically a banana. I usually do most of my long runs on the weekends fasted. Which I know is not the probably proper answer. I know, Vicki, it's okay. So that's an area that I need to work on in order to complete. So I would say banana, because most of the time food just doesn't sit well with me when I'm running.
Okay. All right, Vicki, you're up now.
All right. So this is going to go back to, consistency of what you're doing. I am very ritualistic in what I do. And I haven't competed in years, but it's always coffee and half a power bar an hour before I run, whether it's a long run, a workout, an easy run. So that has been my go-to for many, many years. I found that it worked for me. So it's finding what works for you and then keeping that consistent so that long run morning, you're getting up at the time you need to fuel before you go out for your run. And it's going to be the same that mirrors your race you're preparing for.
Right. Not a big bowl of veggies the day of the
probably
marathon
not
or
so
something.
Ideal.
Yeah. Fiber.
No, probably not tacos the night before either.
Dr. Matuzak.
This is so two answers to this question. What would I usually like to fuel with? I usually like something like I like eggs for before long races. I don't know if that's a great answer or not, but it works for me. But I think that the challenging part and what you guys touched on a little bit is the ritualistic part. I mean, like a lot of times these races, and Vicki talked about it a bit earlier, very early. I mean, like I think the race this year has a 6 a.m. start time if I'm correct, right, Greg?
That is correct.
And so you got to plan. You're going to not just run at 6 a.m., but you got to get down there. You got to park. You got to get over to the starting line. Get ready. So, by the time you're waking up and eating, you're talking about 4 a.m. that you're waking up and eating breakfast. And no matter how much training you do ahead of time, you're not used to eating at 4 a.m. Most of the time. So I think that part is a little challenge. But my go-to food is eggs.
Eggs. Scrambled?
Scrambled.
Okay.
With cheese.
I don't know why.
Cheesy. Maybe some bacon, greasy bacon.
We'll all meet up for breakfast after this. I'll get on and cop the next plane.
Not followed by a long run.
Jim.
Yeah, so I like to, I have a framework I try to keep in mind. So having some simple carbohydrates that I know are going to get through my digestive system relatively quickly. Usually about 90 minutes before I go out for my longer run. I try to keep a little bit of protein in that, but not a ton, and definitely not a lot of fiber because I want to clear my system pretty quick, and I don't want to get GI distress. So
not at mile 3.
Yeah, not at mile 3. So frankly, I usually defer to like a cup of granola and maybe a sip of some Gatorade or Powerade, and then like Vicki said, I like to caffeinate a little bit before I go out. Keeps me kind of focused. So granola, caffeine, a little bit of split drink, and I'm dialed in.
Ready to go. Greg Weber.
Well, I'm probably not the best person, but for Dr. Matuzak, I'm glad you actually get to sleep till 4, just so everybody knows on this call, because preparations don't fall out of the sky. The people are already on the street setting up for you while you're rolling out of bed at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. We have to wait till the bars close for the people and the drunks to get home. But for me, I'm probably not the best person to answer. I'm a triathlete at heart. My go-to traditionally before Ironman or half Ironman is pizza the night before, 2 beers and a vodka.
Perfect.
And, Vicki's laughing, but Vicki, you can say, how many people are stressed out before a big race and they don't sleep the night before? Then they're no good at 4 a.m., right? They're tossing and turning. I sleep like a baby, right? My biggest concern is my alarm's not going to wake me up. So I've always gone into the race really well rested.
All right. So you've heard it from our race director, folks. 2 beers, vodka, pizza.
If you're of age.
Before your race. Great.
Well,
I am a standard half a bagel and cream cheese. I look for carbohydrates, protein. I got a itty bitty tummy that only holds a little bit, so I try to shove in some. I mean, it's actually a treat for me. I don't normally eat bagels, so on race morning, woo, I'm gonna have a bagel and maybe even a banana. I'm a nerd.
And Fitz, if I can add in one tip for our runners, especially if they're coming in from out of town, staying overnight, bring your food with you.
Yes.
Because the chance of finding someplace at 4 or 5 a.m. open to grab something to eat is slim, but bring what you need with you and that you've been rehearsing with.
Slimmer during COVID too, right? I mean, the places are not opening. So
yeah, put that stuff in the big part of your luggage if you get on a plane. But I actually never leave the house without, and that means getting on a plane or going to, I don't know, the gym. I always got a bunch of tangerines in my bag and Kind bars, and I just prepare. And much like a baby, you wouldn't leave the house without formula for the baby. We all turn into giant big babies if we do not have food, and then we make horrible choices or we get hangry. So prepare. So we are going to wrap it up. We just hit the 1 hour mark. I was trying to keep it under an hour, but you guys are so entertaining and engaging.
I want to interrupt before we go over an hour. And I know I put this in the private chats, and I know it's sensitive for me because I've had so many questions about it, and I think this panel could address it very well. I mean, the question that I have gotten repeatedly and most consistently has been, "Oh my God, it's going to be hot. What are we going to do?" True, we are 4 weeks later. True, we've had a very hot week. I actually looked it up. Our average race temperature is generally starting around 61 degrees in May when we start. It goes 61 to 71. I looked it up. The average temperature on June 27th is 71 to 78. Not our hottest day, but certainly warmer than we normally deal with. So, I mean, if people can chime in from a race perspective, the course is going to look a little different this year because of COVID. We will not be having cupped water that's grab and go. It's going to be more bottles grab and go at the aid stations. You'll be able to take an 8-ounce bottle or 2 bottles with you, so you'll be able to carry hydration. We've changed the aid stations around a little bit. I would suggest you look at the map. There's 13 of them on the course. I would also ask anybody watching this, when you grab the bottles, don't just throw them in the street. They become tripping hazards. They're litter. We want to leave the city better than we found it. We'll have places to dump them off. We'll have bottled Gatorade, and we'll have gel on the course. And besides the aid stations, one of the things I'm most proud of in our association with Collegiate, we will have 18 medical aid stations. Even though we have reduced our water aid stations to 13 because of the course adjustments, Collegiate will still be at the standard 18 locations that they've been at, and there will be 4 trained medical professionals at every one of those aid stations with, God forbid, AEDs. So our athletes are better covered on this course, and I would put our medical coverage up against any race in the country, New York, Boston, for the coverage we have. And it's a testament to Collegiate staff getting out there, and then UBMD staffs the medical tent with 9 to 12 ER doctors and residents and fellows. So we've got really good coverage, and we're going to be out there to keep everybody safe. From my perspective, if it gets really hot, we have a heat plan. We'll have ice. I would ask, and I'll ask on race day, if it gets hot, I'm hoping it's going to be 65, right? Because we're starting at 6 a.m. Remember, run within yourself. It may not be a PR day. It's about getting back. We're the first race back in New York State, the first major race. Get out there, enjoy it. And if it's not a PR day, look at the sights on the city and just go with it and pick the next race. We don't want you in the medical tent, and we don't want you in the hospital. We want you to go home to your family. So that's my sense.
Great feedback, Craig. Thank you. That's I'm glad you covered that. Annette says, "I'm so happy for all the athletes that they get to do the race after all we've endured the past year." Yeah, agreed, Annette. It's been a rough go for the running community, which, in my opinion, should have never happened. So it's very victorious that we're getting back in action again. And then Jessica wants to know, do we have registrations left for the in-person half marathon?
There are registrations left for the in-person half and full. They're community slots. It's like the Ride for Roswell. They're $25 each. You have to raise $500, which if you hook it up to Facebook, which is pretty easy, has proved to be pretty easy. As you know, I'm running this. I raised $1,000 from my friends. The important thing, and since you set the stage for this, since 2/1 when we started this for Collegiate, the best in cardiac care, we've raised, as of this morning, for Heart to Heart, $160,000 since 2/1. So the community has been an outpouring during this pandemic. I would love to hit 200,000 before race day. So there's about 60 or 70 slots still available in there. So sign up and let's go. Maybe not the marathon, but I'll shift the full marathon spots down to the half if we have an outpouring for them.
Excellent answer. Thank you. So I'm going to wrap it up, guys, just because we should wrap it up. But from the team for Excelsior Orthopedics, thank you so much, Jenna, Jim, Dr. Matuzak. You guys, spectacular guests. Vicki, so funny and handy. Go Bulls. Greg, you put on an extraordinary event. I'm grateful to be a part of it. I'm so happy to be the Grand Poobah. I've got my hat.
I can't thank you. You've raised our game, and you've become such a good friend. And we're going to start a new thing here. It's going to be the Marathon Mafia instead of the Bills Mafia.
Marathon Mafia. I can get down with that. All right, so we've got a little over a month left. If you're not already a part of this incredible event, you should be. Go to buffalomarathon.org. We still have registrations available. And if not, you can come cheer for those who are participating. And we got the Ruffalo Stampede that's sold out, but
no, 3 spots left.
We have 3?
There's 3 spots left for the Ruffalo Stampede, and registration does close on May 31st for the half and the full, and actually all of them. We may hold it for the 5K a little, just because we need to mail the bibs out. We cannot wait until the week before and then mail the bibs.
Right.
We're going to prep the bibs. People are going to be assigned to waves and corrals, and it's going to be all randomized. And I'm crossing my fingers the state gives us a little bit more latitude about how we can host the race. So stay tuned to our guide and our website. We'll be making adjustments all month long.
All right. I'm warming up my big mouth. I'm warming up my hugging arms. We can't wait to see everyone at the end of June. If you have more questions, you can poke them in the comment section and Buffalo Marathon on Facebook. All of them will be answered. And I encourage everyone to have a great weekend. Thanks, team.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Vic.
you.
Thanks, everybody,
Bye, everybody.
for coming and watching.
Bye, guys.